Most of you have already heard the news that I announced this past week, that after a great deal of prayer and discernment, that Mark and I believe that God is calling me to retire this year. I've served in ministry in the United Methodist Church for some 37 years. I know I don't look that way. That's a joke, by the way. I've served here at the church for 12 years. It's been a privilege to be here at Francis Asbury. And I'm so thankful for the time here, and so thankful for the love and the relationships that we've all shared together. It's interesting for me to sense that call of God to move me towards retirement, because I kind of always thought when I got to retirement I'd be saying, oh man, I finally get to retire. I can't stand working. I got to retire. But that's not where I am. I love you guys. I love the church. I love being a pastor. And I nonetheless sense that God's saying, Ed, you always knew that time was going to come. It's finally time. And so we will be moving on. I sent out some details this past week. You'll be hearing some more as we move through time. But I want you to know that within our United Methodist system, we have a wonderful way of moving pastors. As I move into retirement, the bishop and cabinet, working with our staff, parish committee, and the life of the church, will be seeking a new pastor for Francis Asbury. And we know that God works within that way of our United Methodist system of bringing the perfect person to follow me. So I want to ask that you be praying for that process. The bishop and the cabinet met in mid-January. They're meeting again in sort of mid to late February. And when that appointment is made, what will happen is they'll identify the person. They'll schedule a Meet the Pastor visit with our staff parish relations committee here in the life of the church. And on the back side of that, if all goes well, and usually it does, then that appointment will be announced, and that person would come on the very first Sunday of July 4th weekend. It's July 3rd. I'll be leaving a week or two before that, and so there's a very smooth transition between an outgoing pastor and an incoming pastor. Our church is in a strong place right now. We're all ready to come back increasingly after the pandemic. We have a wonderful staff, wonderful lay leadership, and I know that there's going to be a very smooth transition of leadership from me having been your pastor to you receiving a new one. Your loving, gracious congregation. And so I'm excited, though I'm sad to leave, for what God is holding in place for the future here, both in our lives and in the life of our church as well. I've shared some news with you this past week about the plan of God in my life to move towards retirement, and a plan of God for our church to receive a new pastor and begin a new time of growth and prosperity here. We recognize that God's beginning to unfold the plan. And we hang on to passages like this to give us a sense of hope and a sense of joy and a sense of excitement. You see, what God says in Jeremiah is true, isn't it? I know the plans I have for you, individually, in this case, for our church. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. I hope that you receive that this day in your life. And as a congregation, as our church here at Francis Asbury, and for those of you who claim us as your church, that you'll realize that that's what God is saying to us as well.